Welcome to the Germinate Podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. All right, welcome back to the Germinate Podcast, everyone. Thanks for joining us again here today. I've got the guys from 5L here today, Rick Faber and Jesse DePriest. We're going to talk a little bit about 5L here in a second, but first and foremost, fellas, I think, Jesse, you and I met, it's probably been a couple of years or so ago. We worked with a former employer of mine and you stopped by. So that's how we got started. So Jesse and Rick, welcome aboard.
Right on, man. Thanks,
Great
Joe.
to be here.
Happy spring. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're recording May 1. It's raining here in Iowa. I don't know what it's doing where you're at.
It's a little sprinkly here too, but it's sunshiny at Rick's house. It's always sunshiny at Rick's house.
I was excited, Joe, to get on because Jesse told me that, you have this background in sales, right? And sales leadership. And that's really my background. So, there's a kindred piece to this, right? Because I spent 25 years in that, in really sales leadership was really I'll call it what I spent most of my time doing.
It's funny, when I started out this business, consulting business, not the podcast, but the consulting business, this was roughly February 1st. So we're still pretty new in this. I knew I had to surround myself with a bunch of people that are kind of in the space already, or that were in my network, but quite kind of out of my network. So I think that's when I reached out to you, Jesse, too, just to pick your brain. And I was really impressed with what you guys have built here with 5L as well. So that's part of the reason why I reached out too. I like following people that have their stuff together and have built a business from scratch and are doing it and building momentum every day. And that's definitely you two guys. So I don't care who, but tell us about 5L. What everybody that creates a business to solve a problem. So talk about 5L in the lens of solving that problem. Go ahead.
Before we do, it's a good thing you have an operations guy between two sales guys. But I have to say, I was in sales for a while too. You know why? Because I started out as an engineer, and it's like, if you can't be a good engineer, you go to sales.
I see how it is. Yep. That's how it works. Yep.
That's how it works. But yeah, man. Well, Rick and I have been kicking around this thing for a little while, and I would say the 5L was born out of a serendipity God thing, where we were sharing some ideas without having intentionally talked to each other about this, and we were literally saying the same words about what 5L is in the framework. Because of that, we decided to up our game and create a whole new brand around the 5L Performance Group and add some more capability to our practice. Rick, what would you add?
Well, yeah, it was serendipitous. What was really interesting, I was talking kind of about a foundation that I think about in leadership, and I used a couple of words that most people don't ever put together. Ultimately, and it was the word love and it was the word lean. How many times do you hear people do that, right? I mean, yeah. I've heard a lot of people describe lean, but not ever add the word love to it, right? So this love to lean thing came, and that's where 5L ultimately was. We, a foundation of if we care enough, if we love enough, our people, our processes, our clients, the work we do, our product, that allows us then to really listen closely, listen to the customer, listen to our associates. Through that, we learn. We truly lead then once we're able to do that well. And then this whole idea of continuous improvement in lean is just fits, really, really well. And one just keeps wrapping around the other. And so anyway, I'm talking about this, and Jesse says, hey, let me check. You need to check out my license plate. Like your license plate. Yeah, he says, you got to check out my license plate on my car. I walk out, and he's got 5L, right, is on his license plate. We haven't even talked about this. I'm going, that is crazy, right?
That's wild.
So, anyway, it was a presentation that led to that conversation. And I think the other thing that's, really unique, and what problems do we solve? The problem we solve is there's a lot of great business leaders out there, a lot of smart people that have, in many cases, even done really, really well. But we've learned, no matter how often we've thrown around this word as lead or leader or leadership, there's very few that do that really well.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that's really where this came together.
Yeah, that's a great story. That is serendipity, or like Jesse, you said, a God thing. And I think sometimes we've got to stop and kind of listen to those intuitions or those vibes. And clearly you guys did. Talk a little bit about your, we probably should have started with this, but hey, we're new at this. So talk about your backgrounds before. I know you talked about 5L. I definitely want to jump into that, but your backgrounds on how you guys kind of found each other and your friendship that led to this partnership.
Well, we're both farm boys. I know you've got an affinity here to the ag industry.
Yeah, amen.
Clients and that kind of stuff. So you got a farm kid from Alaska and a farm kid from Iowa. All big, fun, good roots there.
Sure.
But yeah, my career was mostly in manufacturing, engineering degree, MBA, operations, and I learned early on in my career about lean because I had really great leaders and mentors that taught me this stuff in the real world of work. Fast forward in my career, I ran a business for a few years, and then I found myself in these roles where I'm kind of a strategic transformation coach inside of fairly large enterprises, and then had the opportunity to, people asked me to do this work outside of my W-2 job. And those engagements turned into significant relationships and work. And around that time, I met Rick, and he helped connect me to part of his work. And then it just allowed me to jump into this consulting world full time in a good, confident, safe way. And it's been green lights ever since. But there was just a point in time where our paths crossed, and we saw some synergy in our work. And we moved forward. So, Rick, what about you? What's your perspective?
We know you're the sales guy, so we got that in common.
Yeah, for 25 years, I was an executive. Ultimately, ran a large distribution company that ultimately sold out to Home Depot. We sold out in 2012. So we had been rolling up companies, and I loved, being part of that leadership. And when that ended, here I am, I'm like 50 years old, and it's like, what's the next step? Well, I had been a member of Vistage. I had a Vistage coach here in Omaha that really helped me through all of that, was a great resource. And they had asked me if I would consider being a Vistage coach now that we had sold our company. And so through, some time on my knees and some great conversations with people, that ultimately happened. I became a Vistage coach and built a great Vistage practice. But knowing all the time that I wasn't just going to one day flip it off and walk away from all of that, how could I build a great coaching company and do that with other people, and then through partnerships slowly give some of that opportunity to other people? That was really my goal. And so I was looking for another Vistage chair, is how I initially ran into Jesse. And besides, we both come from farms, both men of faith. There were just a lot of things that lined up. And now, Jesse, don't listen to this. He was really smart in areas that I wasn't so smart in, right?
Yeah.
He had this whole lean process side, and frankly, that was never my real expertise. I always tried to surround myself with people like Jesse, but ultimately found that in him. And through Vistage and him taking a chair position, we got to know each other. Pretty soon we're working with customers outside of Vistage and deeper in companies that have Vistage. And while he had his own separate coaching and consulting business on the side, and so did I, we said, why don't we take these, blend them together? I think we've got something that really works. And so it started with Vistage, and then from there we started doing more and more work together. Yeah.
And then created 5L. It's funny that you said, hey, I know my weaknesses. I think that's a big key with people. I saw a post this morning on LinkedIn. You guys may have seen this, but it said, I'm going to ruin it, but it said something to the effect of, as the CEO, you've got to wear the sales hat, the operations hat, the HR hat, the accounting hat. You got to clean up the floors after everybody leaves. And whoever posted this kind of said it as this badge of honor. I replied to it as, it's not really a badge of honor. That's a recipe for disaster. And, you can come in and at first everybody's got to wear those hats. But reality is, if you want to scale your business and really grow, you've got to separate the things out that you're not very good at, specifically as you're sitting in the CEO seat. I'm guessing that's why 5L was created, to kind of, I think it says on your website, the word chaos quite a bit. End the chaos in businesses. Let 5L come in and help you kind of smooth that transition out. You guys resonating with that at all? Does that make sense to you, Jesse? Take that one.
Yeah, 100%. Bring calm to chaos, right? And leaders have to learn to trust, create the organizational structure and a management system through which we can all do good work. And
Right.
take your hero cape off, leader, and trust your people. You hire pros, let them do their job. As a CEO, you feel that pressure. You're accountable for everything. It's your livelihood. But creating the mechanisms, the management structures and routines through which we can all do good work is what 5L is about. So we just take a step back around the 5L. So there's a leadership framework that Rick explained. It's, we first love, care about what we do, and care about our people. Then we got to listen. And through listen, we're going to learn. We listen to our people and our customers, right? And through that listening, we're going to learn the real truth about what is going on.
Sure.
And then we can finally lead, because we've taken that time to truly understand, show that we care, and get to that place of reality. Now we can say, this is where we're going and why. And I need your help, team, to move us in that direction. That's the leadership. And we do that with all the tools and mechanisms and best practices of lean, right? To be more efficient in our work, to create greater value for your client. But in our L5L practice, we also have a management system. We would say it's rigorous in its structure, but flexible in our approach and how we engage a client around that.
Sure.
First lever is strategy. Second lever is around process improvement and problem solving. Third lever is the daily management, how we do work today. Another lever of leadership and how our leadership behaviors and activities in each of those three buckets come to play. And then the fifth lever is what I call the enabling elements. It's the 6 common inputs to a new system or process: the people, the data, the machines, right? The tools, the tech. Those are all things that we use in our work to do good work. But ultimately, we're trying to define and craft value for tomorrow through strategy while we're managing the business today. It's our daily management system. And the gap between where we are and where we want to go is closed through a process improvement or problem-solving method of some kind. And all 3 buckets of work require leadership. So that's kind of the management system behind it. And I would say, helping the leader find calm in the chaos is first seeing your work as a system and having a management structure, right? A system, a management system to handle those different buckets of work. So that's what I would say, just for bringing some clarity about that. And I'll just maybe last point, and I'll turn it over to Rick, is as we're engaging a client initially, we have an assessment to look. It's like, how well are you doing strategy? How well are you doing managing the day? What is your method for process improvement and problem solving? What's your leadership capability like? Is there anything in your enabling elements that's missing? And through that assessment, then we can prioritize and focus on the area that they need the most help with to start with.
Yeah.
Right? Other approaches to this work might say, well, we always start with strategy, and we get some rocks going, and we do some other stuff, and that's good. I mean, there's a benefit in that, but we need to move beyond the executive leadership team. We need to get everybody in the enterprise aligned to this work, and oftentimes it doesn't always have to start with strategy. There may be some fundamental leadership things we need to fix and get in place before we start working on strategy, right? If you don't have a way to make change, well, you can craft all the strategy you want, but if we don't have any way to manage the change, it might not work out so well. So anyway, turn it over to Rick about what you see about this chaos to calm question.
Yeah, and Rick, I'll kind of lead with this question. Is clearly you guys both have a heck of a lot of experience in businesses and different industries, and I think one of the things about that experience is there are all sorts of these systems that are out there in play. And a lot of people talk, Jesse, you just brought it up, strategy is this buzzword that's out there, or strategic this or strategy that. And I've talked about this in previous podcasts, is a strategy is not really worth much if it doesn't execute what you want that strategy to do. But too many businesses are sticking with it. I got to stick with it because that's the strategy we set. I mean, talk about that, Rick, a little bit in your experience and what differentiates you from, your management system in 5L with what's out there and, in the space.
I believe many of the systems that that we see out there today are a great start for many companies. If you have nothing and you're doing nothing, it's a great place to start. And in fact, I just met with a person this morning, using a system, and small 3-year-old company really trying to find some traction, in some ways. I commend people, for doing that. But I think, and Jesse has mentioned this too before, that works well when I'll say nothing's really moving. The rest of the world's kind of standing still, and we're building our business around whatever that environment is in that moment. It works better than doing nothing. But in VUCA environments, especially like we're in today, that are quite volatile in many ways, right? There's a lot of unknown. There's complexity and ambiguous. We just don't know what it looks like on the other side. We have to have a much stronger foundation. And so, to points I'm sure, Joe, that you've worked at, we don't know if strategy's the problem. The wrong processes are in place, the wrong people are in place. They're trying to put a group of people in leadership together that really don't know how to lead. There's just so many things that can happen, and we use a product called Elevate just to determine what that is. But ultimately, coaching could be involved, going deeper in their system with other support employees might be necessary. So there's just so much that really needs to be, I guess, weaved together to have a fabric of great business in the end. And just a simple, connect the dots doesn't usually work or successfully work. We do a lot of work with what I call phase 2 companies, Joe. Phase 2 companies, they have a product. They've been there for a while. They've proven there's users or there's customers out there for their product, and they kind of get so far, Joe, and they go, I don't know why we keep hitting our head against the ceiling at $5 million or $10 million. We do all these things and we get there and then we just can't go anymore, right? Yeah, it's those kinds of things that take a little more surgical work on the front end to determine what's going to take to really go forward. So back to the flexibility of system, just one model, one way usually won't often, especially phase 2 companies. There's too much complexity going on just for one size fits all, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, it's one of those things where you think about a system that works, and it might work for a year or two, and then you got to take that next step. And that's where I think a lot of companies get stuck. You talked about, and Jesse, you could talk more about this. You talked about the process you guys call Elevate. Walk us through what you do or what that means when you're trying to find out. I get that's kind of like the discovery type call, I'm assuming. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, there is a discovery call, but Elevate is a diagnostic. It's an assessment that the client can take that measures their level of maturity on the 5 levers of our management system. So the 5 levers, again, are leadership, strategy, process improvement, daily management, meaning governance of the current status, and then all the enabling elements. So each of those 5 levers have 5 keys.
Yeah.
As an example, one of the keys for process improvement and problem solving is you have to allocate time. one of the biggest, I'll say, inhibitors of growth is we're so busy doing the work, we never have time to step back and fix a process and make it better, right? So a key for process improvement is you must allocate time. And so 5 levers have 5 keys, and we measure the maturity on a scale of 5 of each of those keys. So it's just through a series of questions, then at the end of the diagnostic, we can say, hey, man, it looks like you got a pretty good idea on the strategy. It looks like you're managing your daily work pretty good today, but you have no organizational capability for problem solving. Like your ability to make change doesn't exist, right? So let's start there, right? It just helps us and the client see through that, through a diagnostic, so that we can prioritize and focus on which part of the management system needs the most help first, and at what level of the organization.
Anyway, what does it mean to you when a company, and I don't care who takes this, but what does it mean to you? You said it earlier, when a company says, or when you find out a company doesn't have any organizational, what did you say? Organizational characteristics for change. What does that
capability
mean? Or no capability for change. Give me an example of that.
Well, what the default is firefighting.
I see.
It's whack-a-mole. Firefighting, in my definition, is the undesirable leadership behavior where we make assumptions, we jump to conclusions, and we just go tell people what to do. The leader is the hero boss, and I see something going on that's frustrating, it's not meeting my expectations. I make an assumption about what is causing that, and I jump to a conclusion and I start telling people what to do. Because if that's the go-to for problem solving, good luck in growth, because a couple things are going to happen. A, you're probably not going to solve the problem because your assumption about what's happening is probably wrong. You're only considering one idea. And then the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to create an organization of learned helplessness, because people are going to come to learn that when something isn't going right and the boss gets mad, we'll just fold our arms and sit back and wait for them to tell us what to do, because you're not listening to me anyway.
Right.
Right. And then there's a problem. You just tell me what to do anyway. So come tell us what to do. Right. And it's obviously not a healthy environment. It does not enable growth. In fact, it could pull you back. So we can say, if not that, then what? Then we need a standardized, structured approach to process improvement and problem solving that everybody in enterprise can employ. So when we bump into a problem, go grab your problem solving method and apply it in a good way. So we're not jumping to conclusions, making assumptions. The team is working on this together in a good way to come up with the best answers, to move things forward, to solve problems, and make the business better. Right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
and it 100% has to do with the behaviors and activities of leadership. What I've just found is that they haven't been trained to create that structured problem-solving approach. Yeah. And leaders get impatient. We want to fix things, and my default mode is that, because I don't know any better. I haven't been trained any other way.
Yeah, one of the interesting things when you walk into companies, and Rick, you can take this one, but sometimes when you're an outsider walking in, you guys have walked into hundreds of companies. It's sometimes hard to see the problem when you're inside the walls, because either you're sweeping it under the rug or you're just flat out ignoring it. I'm assuming when you guys walk into places, part of your discovery is to kind of uncover and unsweep those things that are really pretty major deals that these companies just haven't dealt with because of whatever reason. Is that an accurate statement from me? And is that something you guys see all the time, I'm guessing?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of things that really inhibit that. First of all, there's sacred cows in every organization. There's just certain things that, for whatever reason, they're not willing to touch, right?
Yeah.
It could be lots of things. It could be a toxic person. It could be, a lot of things. One that we find a lot, Joe, is it just feels too good to be the firefighter every day. I love it. Right?
I get to be the hero.
Needed, valued. And it sounds like this. Without me here, this company really wouldn't be able to work. Right? This wouldn't happen. And they wear it like, and you mentioned it earlier, like a badge of honor. Right? They just think, thank God for me, because if without me, this place wouldn't work well.
Right.
So we got a couple of things. There's usually something toxic going on, sacred cows or heroism that's happening, but they're not willing to get out of the way. And usually what we hear a lot from companies is one particular leader finally saying, it might be my fault.
Yeah. That's the aha moment that you probably
I'm the governor on this business. Everything comes through me, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I feel really good about it. But at the end of the day, there's only one of me, and it's not always the right perspective or lens. And I prevent the rest of the world from growing. And so,
literally, the company won't grow, your people won't grow, and you're going to be stuck. Yeah. I would say Rick is a pro at this. Like he says, sees strengths in me, I see strengths in him, and he's brilliant at doing what you just said, Joe. We go into a client, you can see them struggle, and just through a good, loving, natural way of asking questions to discover that thing, and just put your finger on it, right? Yeah. And hopefully the client sees that with you, and you say, you want to fix that? Let's work on this together.
Yeah. Give me an idea on do you have target customers, or you guys kind of, you can appeal to a mass audience here with these processes. You can go into a small business of 5 people, or a large business of 500, or a family owned business, or a manufacturing company, or a retail. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Am I wrong here? You're kind of the sky's the limit, or do you have an area of focus?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Industry agnostic. We have experience in varied industries and types of businesses, and the scale of business too. Maybe Rick, you want to share a few words about that?
Yeah,
in terms of
I would say I'll go back to why I often speak of this. Our best customer is a phase 2 customer. We can absolutely help an entrepreneurial company with a few people that are starting out and that's looking for some ideas and a foundation.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's where our best work or our capabilities is at. There's a lot of people that do that really, really well. But I think our sweet spot is that company that really's been there for a while, and they've, right or wrong, they've developed some systems and hierarchy and how they make decisions and how they run the company and how they solve problems. And more complexity is involved, because it really takes then someone that's, I'm not going to say patient enough, but ask the right questions to really bring them forward. And then our experience, Jesse and my experience, can help them kind of begin to see the light, if you will. I think on the entrepreneurial side, when I say that, let's say it's a smaller company, new product, it's the 2 men in a truck that they're starting out, right? They just haven't, in many cases, they haven't lived through enough stuff yet to really even know, right? You can help them with, hey, here are some ideas and some things, but until they've really experienced it for a while. Now, what we can do with the entrepreneur is put them with a group of other people that have been there and done that, and they start conversations and they learn language. And so how do we solve the entrepreneurial problem? We get them surrounded with a bunch of other smart, great people that all want the same thing as they do. That seems to be a really good place for them to get more experience in a short amount of time with people that really care and love them. And so that's how we kind of handle that, whether that's in Vistage or connecting them with other peers. But as far as 5L work, that usually kind of comes then now once they've experienced that stuff and they've done that for a little while. I don't know, Jesse, maybe you've got something to add to that.
No, I think that covers it. The best, I will say, engagement is exactly what Rick said. Phase 2, it doesn't matter. Industry agnostic, for-profit, non-profit, doesn't matter. But there's a leadership structure, right? There's a leader with a leadership team, and there's an ongoing concern, and there's opportunity to scale.
Yeah,
there's opportunity for growth, and they're not able to realize that something's holding them back. So what is it? Crappy strategy? You don't have a way to manage your work today. You have no way to make change. Maybe we've got some leadership deficiencies somewhere in the enterprise. Maybe you don't have the right data in the right places to help inform your work. So it's those things that we can uncover and help get those things in place so that they can move beyond that, right? And all in the context of that, where it 100% is the leader looking in the mirror and saying, how do I need to shift and change my behaviors and actions in this environment to build the whole organization enterprise and right help people grow and develop into the roles that they have so they can be better leaders, right?
Yeah.
So it's that environment where this really is powerful.
They say, like, when your car's broke down, you can bring it into an experienced auto shop and they could just listen to it. And they're like, oh, it's the timing belt, or, oh, you need a new start, or whatever the case. Is that kind of, I'm kind of thinking that's the way it is when you guys walk into places. You have a quick conversation, or maybe it's a discovery session. And do give me some top 2 or 3 things where you're like, yep, I've seen this so many times and I know how to fix it, but it's been ignored. Do you get what I'm trying to ask there?
Oh, for sure. And maybe we can just through experience in the elevated assessment and whatnot, you can see it because we have the advantage of having that unbiased view about what's going on. Right. And it's not a sacred cow to us. We can call it out, but our recommendation and those kinds of things won't work until the leader sees it.
Yeah.
And they agree. It's like, okay, we see this thing. We agree. You got to do that. So we can tell you it's your timing belt, but they got to believe and see it too. Right.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. How do you know it's the timing belt? We got to help explain through that. I would say, there's a lot of work to be done and just in process thinking. There's a lot of work to be done in building high performance teams where there's some autonomy and accountability for them to not just do the work, but think critically about how to do the work and be enabled to make change in a good way. And then align all of that work to achieve the strategy or the vision we have for the business.
Right.
Rick probably talk more about this than I can, just about the lack of alignment, especially at the top level, about what's most important, what we got to do. And sometimes we got to say no. Like, I like reminding leaders that the word decide literally means to kill. Right?
Yeah.
Think about what decide sounds a lot like herbicide and pesticide, right? And fungicide.
Yeah.
So to decide is more about deciding what you're not going to do so we can focus on the most important thing that will move the business forward. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe Rick can share something about that.
Do you mean Rick by not everybody's maybe in tune with the vision of the company, meaning alignment? Is that kind of what Jesse's alluding to there?
I think there's a couple of things. And this isn't unusual. I mean, you're doing it today, Joe. You've got this new work that you're doing, and you're taking your history and your experience and you're moving it forward. Those that do that typically have a certain type of behavioral profile. Let's be honest, right? Sure. They have a drive. They already think they know. In many cases, they know what's right and what works and what doesn't, because and they're willing to take some risk in that, right? Which means they're probably a little urgent. They got frustrated because some other place went too slow, not fast enough, or they couldn't see the opportunity. So you know the type, right? They already know what they're doing, and in many cases they do. So to answer your question about how do you begin to see that, a conversation with the owner or the leadership team gives us some obvious direction what might be a problem pretty quick.
I bet.
And then the second thing, the assessment really gives us, I'll call it the diagnostic, just like you talked about as an auto mechanic. I can tell you it's the timing belt, but I also have evidence over here that says, I know you, beyond just taking my word for it, here's an actual printout of what the diagnostic says is happening, right? So we have to do kind of, a combination of those things, because I can come in and say, well, Joe, I'm just telling you, you're working so deeply in this business every day, you can't see the trees through the forest, and all of this stuff is happening, and your idea of fixing it is working harder. Your idea of scaling a business is we put more time, more energy, more passion into this business. We can grow through that lid.
Yeah. I'm going to work 80 hours a week now. Yeah.
Okay. That's what your dad did, right? And or whatever. I mean, they have some vision of why that works. And that's why I think 5L has a real place, because at some point the leader goes, I don't know what's wrong. They're not hearing me, and I've yelled louder, and that's not working. I got to try something else.
And we're still stuck.
Hired the wrong people.
Yeah, right. Well, what's funny in my business is, everybody's like, what do you do, Joe? What is it that you do now? And I'm like, my canned answer lately has been, I'm taking the 20 years of experience that I have and opening that up to companies that not only want to partner with me, but also that I want to partner with. That we both see, we get that first hurdle out of the way. We see eye to eye on what it is that treasure is. And then I try to focus on, let's provide some value here. I think too many times a lot of businesses get stuck in, their email signature needs to change. It's like, okay, I get it. It might be true, but that's not going to bring you any revenue. I'm sorry. It's just not going to, no one cares really about that. What you need to focus on is what's going to bring you some revenue. I call them revenue generating activities. That's my new coin. That'll be the book that I write one day, by the way, RGAs. And, you guys we can talk maybe offline on what you think of that. But the point being is, let's focus on RGAs throughout the industry. And it's not just a sales thing. It could be that we're scrapping too many parts. It could be that we're not paying attention to how long it takes us to quote a product. If it takes us 3 weeks to quote something and our competitors do it in 3 minutes, well, there's a problem. You're losing revenue. And I think that's the value that we as consultants kind of have to bring and keep our eyes on, is the focus on creating a value there. And that's why I was impressed with you, Jesse. When you kind of did some things in the past, it was very much, this is tangible. This is not just something fluffy here. This works. Like, this will provide you value and provide a business value if they implement some of these things that aren't complicated. It's basic stuff. We just forgot about them for whatever reason. I don't know if I have a comment or a question in there, but I think the point being is it's retooling and refocusing the attention of these businesses to look forward and stop being so transactional on all the little things that really don't matter in the end, or you can find somebody else to do that for you.
No, I think that's really good, Joe. It's process thinking, revenue generating activities, is everything in the enterprise that creates value. It 100% is aligned to traditional lean thinking about, well, what work do we actually do that creates value? Everything else is waste. And if I can see that waste in our enterprise, we can educate and teach people around that. We can start to see it, start eliminating it, so that we can do more value creating activities. So I love your approach and your philosophy and coining the term. I'll be happy to endorse your book when you write it. So that's really, really, really cool idea. And certainly in sales, right? Because that's your focus area in your profession. And what are we doing in revenue generating activities in the sales process? But there are many, many other processes in enterprise that can contribute to this.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Our clients, that you earn the right to grow when you improve a process.
Yeah.
Because when you eliminate waste, you create capacity to do more work. And then you can use that capacity to serve your customers better or more, and therefore you'll grow. And that is just the opposite of the default mode, without any other way, where it's just tell people what to do and work harder and get mad when we get good results and I raise my voice. Right? No, how about we get serious about a coherent standard approach through which we can improve processes over time and respect the people while we do it, so that we can create greater value for your client. It's very synonymous to what you just said. Revenue generating activities. I love that. That's good.
Nice.
I love even your name of your company with, where we got this Germinate thing, right? Really, how does that happen? And it's really what we're doing. We're creating conditions, the right environment with the right tools and the right things to do great work. Germination doesn't really happen until we have the right conditions, right?
Yeah.
Nothing happens unless we have these conditions that are right that can really make this move forward. And so,
Well, I love that. Thank you.
Right? It's like, this is what we're doing. We're trying to create the right conditions for growth. And when it's right, it grows really, really well and it thrives. When we don't have the right conditions, we'll struggle to survive, right?
Well, and you're the first person that's ever brought that up. So thank you, Rick. I appreciate that, my friend. It took me weeks to come up with this name, by the way. But yeah, also part of the germination process. Clearly, it's a play on agriculture, and that's the primary niche audience that I'm in. But you're right. Germination also means that, when a seed germinates, specifically out in an agricultural field, when one seed germinates, the others around it, they want to compete with that. They want to germinate and pop up out of the ground too. Mm-hmm. So we're all feeding off of each other here, kind of. My motto is kind of one growth, one mind at a time. So that's why I love talking to people like you guys, because we're all kind of thinking of these ways to pop ourselves up out of the ground and get these businesses kind of some new life. And thriving is, I think, a fantastic word. And yeah, that's awesome that you brought that up. I really appreciate that, man. Not everybody has kind of understood that, but it's exactly the point.
We're going to steal the analogy.
You better hurry up and write that.
We can steal from us. We're good, Joe. We can
just work together, Joe.
I hear you. Well, and that's another thing I'm trying to build just on the side too, is sort of a network of growth-minded people that I don't know is out there. And I'm gonna, I've kind of got a group of 7 to 10 of us now. I'll definitely include you guys in. I'm calling it the Germinate Growth Network. The first time I've said this publicly, but I'll keep you guys in the loop. But honestly, it's a large part of meeting people like you guys and understanding that processes do matter. Jesse, talk about this too. Processes is a scary word for a lot of businesses. They think, oh, here we go. Another process. It's going to take me a year and a half to write it. And, there's going to be 37 steps and I'm never going to get this done. And then we're going to follow it for a week and then we're going to forget about it. I think that is obviously not true at all. You said it earlier. A good process makes your life easier, not harder, right?
Well, 100%. Listen, you're doing your work in some process now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we have never documented it, so we have tribal knowledge and we have a lot of variation in the ways we're doing it, but people are all following some type of process, whether they see it or not. It's much better, obviously, if we can all get together and agree to the best known way to do the work, and we all do it that way. I think best practice is, obviously, you got to have some form to write that down. So it's documented in some form so that we can see it, know it, follow it, train it, and then improve it. There's a old long-standing quote around lean where there is no standard, there can be no improvement, because everyone's doing it different ways, and there's lots of variation in how we're doing it. Well, good luck improving that, because you get the team together and say, let's improve this process. Well, whose way are we going to improve? Yours or mine or Rick's, right?
All right.
So the team first needs to get standard work, and that just simply means everyone get in a room, let's talk about the best practices, let's have a good debate, but let's agree to the best known way to do this task or this process. Now we follow that. And because I have that standardization, the next kind of key part of that whole environment is that the leader needs to define what good is. And now we talk about expectations and standards maybe at the executive level under some knowledge and definition of standards there. But when I've seen it all the time, like the manager and the supervisor level has never been asked the question or encouraged to say, well, what's your vision of excellence for this process? It's your team, it's your process, you're doing work. What's good to you? Now, hopefully we answer that question from the lens of the customer. Right? What does this process need to do that would create great value for the customer in speed or quality or cost? And we can define what excellence is around that. So now that I have standard work and we're doing it, I can measure it, see how we're doing it, I can compare it to our vision of excellence. Now I have a problem to solve. And that's awesome. The problems are good things, not bad things, because now I know what the heck it is we're trying to do. We're trying to get from this level of performance to this level of performance. So now let's engage the people that do the work in a really good way so their voices are here. We have a good discussion and debate. We agree to the best thing to do, and we do it together. Now, if you can get the entire enterprise doing that, Johnny, hold the door, man, because you will start kicking butt and taking names and
let it rip. Yeah,
right?
I hear you.
They won't be able to keep up.
Well, let's kind of, I love that it's diving deep into how 5L works and how it's such an advantage to a business to sort of take advantage of a service that you guys provide, because, seeing your business sort of from an outside perspective is such a huge thing that everyone should take advantage of. And I've seen it firsthand, working with Jesse. So it works. And I'm a huge proponent of this. But Rick, talk about your sales hat and building a network, not just so you can develop business and clients, but how you can, build you and Jesse and 5L into a network of like-minded individuals. How important is that to you? And how do you, what are your kind of your tips and trades to get out there and network your business?
Well, being involved, for me anyway, being involved with lots of leaders in lots of different industries has been a huge help, right?
Sure.
In just building our own business. And so I guess, as I look at business and, thinking about, even what you're doing, we have to create the right environment, first of all, for real growth. And we have to include others to do that really, really well, no matter what systems you kind of use. Jesse and I experience it every day. We work with a company, and they have some operating system in place today, but in most cases, we can't even get to work, I'll call it, on the business, because really the owner or the leader is now just using some system to drive what he or she wants, right? Mm-hmm. That's the only reason they're doing it, is because they really don't want Jesse's input. They really don't want Joe's input, but they want to come up with a way to get everybody else to do their thing, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And
right.
It's a long way of going around for us as we grow and we, let's say, market, our business, is just getting to this place of finding awareness enough, at least in the beginning, to say, this might be a way for us to take the next level. So even in your business, we can say we solve certain problems, we can and do all of that, but until emotionally they begin to connect with us in some way, we're not going to grow our business, right? People want to.
You got to have that alignment for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to my son-in-law the other day, and he mentioned this quote, and it's so good. It's, people don't care how much you know, right? Until they know how much they care, or you care.
Yeah.
And we have to put ourselves in those environments and network with other people where we can share why we care about the work we do. And is that going to be a win every time, Joe? No. But it's letting other people know this. We really care about this work. We really care to help make companies thrive, and we have to connect with the Joes of the world and the Bills of the world to make that work. At least today, for us, every industry sale is different. Sometimes it's really obvious that this tool solves the problem. In other cases, in theory, it solves the problem. And the only time we can have dialogue, even in theory, is if we're attractive enough in some way that they're willing to even have a conversation, right? So we have to intentionally create ways to have conversation. And if we can find that way to do that, we'll be successful. No,
I love that, man. I think, and for gosh sakes, can we have some fun while we're doing this? Is that okay? You know what I mean? Can we give each other a high five and a attaboy and a fit? I mean, we all spend a lot of time working. Let's have some fun while we're doing it, right? I mean, that's the end goal. I got to know before we leave, Jesse. What's the what did the 5L mean on your license plate?
Oh, the 5 L's. Love, listen, learn, lead, lean. 100%.
So you knew that was before you guys even started this business?
Yep.
That's crazy.
In fact, I'd already registered 5L.com, 5L as a business a couple of years ahead of time.
I gotcha. That's a funny story.
I walk into a workshop with Rick and he says, I have this leadership framework I'd like to share with you. And I was like, oh my God, we got to do this.
That's great. That's great.
Good, man. Yeah, that's good. We do need to bring joy into work, friend. Thank you for saying that.
We do.
It's like sometimes there's nothing more maddening for me to be in with a client and there's just no love, there's no energy. It's like, why are we here, friends? Come on. Listen, our work is sacred. We were born to work. We were born to purpose. We were born to do these things to serve our customers or clients and create environments for people to thrive and have good jobs. Yeah. So this work is serious, right? The work that we do is serious because we're impacting people's lives. But we got to show up with some joy.
And we are men of...
We are blessed beyond measure across people around the world. And it's like, bring some love and energy to this thing. Makes our life so much better. It's not like we need to walk in with pom-poms every day.
No, but
bring some joy and gratitude to this thing.
Have a little smile on your face. It means so much. And I'll kind of end with this. When we worked together before, you did this thing that started. Honestly, when I first thought about this, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But you remember this? Maybe you do this quite a bit. But you have this thing called walk-on music or walk-out music.
We do walk-in music. Yeah, buddy.
Music. You know, when a relief pitcher comes on the mound and is all right, and whatever, AC/DC comes on, Thunderstruck or whatever. Yeah. It's like, all right, man, the whole place is in. The whole place is involved. And you did that at the start of this meeting, and it got everybody in the frame of mind like, all right, this is not going to be some boring old, session. This is legit, and this is for real, and I love that, man. So
bring some energy to your work. Thanks, John.
Bring some energy. Tell everybody how to get in touch with 5L, how to get in touch with you guys, and we'll kind of close out with that.
Rick, hit it.
Certainly you can get a hold of us at our website, www.5lperformancegroup.com. And we'll certainly get back to you. Our email addresses are just either Jesse or Rick at 5lperformancegroup.com. Pretty easy. And we'll get in touch with you right away. On our website, you'll see Jesse's number. Jesse, I don't have that at the tip of my tongue, but what's your number that we have on the website?
No, you can call me. You betcha. 402-739-7607.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. Now you're going to get all sorts of calls, man. Rick and Jesse, I know this is going to be the last time you guys we talk to one another. This is the start of a good collaboration, I feel. So appreciate you guys doing this. And until next time when we do it again, I guess we'll see you on the flip side, right? So thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.